All right. So,
Awesome.
um, I guess we'll
Just let
just
me host you real quick.
yeah, guess we'll just sit and hang out for a couple seconds.
Yep. Okay. I think you're live.
Check my channel real quick.
They never really know with Twitch.
Oh, I
Always breaks
know.
all the time.
Yeah, I believe roster lock actually closes next week, correct?
I think it's the 22nd, something like that.
Yeah.
Pretty long period this
Mhm.
time. I think it's like
Yeah,
3 weeks long.
it started the 5th and it would end that yeah, so that'll be damn near a month actually.
Yeah, I think
About 3 weeks.
I think the last roster lock period is only like 3 days or something.
Mhm. Yeah, it was really
Yep.
short.
Personally, I think there's probably too many roster change periods this year. It's like every single month you can change players out, and then the
Uh
last one, I guess, is right before champs. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah, so with this year, it seems like it's before every major event that they're doing some type of, roster change with, obviously with what people can do now is, drop four, keep one, keep your spot.
Yeah, well, I don't even really just drop four. You can drop all five because the stipulation is that you can move one of the players to the alternate role, and then that's it.
Okay.
So you could actually just, yeah, you could pretty much just have 15 different players. Kind of crazy to think about, but I don't know if that was really the intention of the rule that MLG and CWL had in mind when they started out the season, but I guess
No.
teams are finding ways around it.
Yeah, I think at this point now you have so many different people in now, and with franchising coming next year, they're trying to do as much as they can. So if that means if a team is, 2 and 5, then well, okay, let's just drop off five, refresh. What are we losing?
Oh no, but that's the thing too. It's like most of these teams that are really driven by personalities. So if you can just swap out the whole roster, what does that really do for continuity? So imagine two teams could actually trade all five of their guys on the roster for another team's five,
Mhm.
and just in effect switch records. It's a little weird this year, especially when teams don't really have any sort of real investment in it because people didn't pay any sort of franchise fee this year. So why give them franchise like level of control? It doesn't really make too much sense to me.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's the rules.
Yeah.
So I guess teams are going to abide by them.
That I mean, yeah, that is the rules, and I mean, we're definitely seeing that maybe the organizations have too much power this year. What do you think?
Uh, yeah, I'd say so, especially this year because I think the perfect solution would have been to at least lock the roster. Well, the
Mhm.
spot would stay with a roster of three people, so you had to keep three on the roster from the start of the season. And last year was the rule was only two, and then they bent the rules, I guess, for Era Eternity when because Bevel's retired, so they were able to
Yeah.
sub in Blastful. And yeah, I guess that it makes a little bit more sense too, because I guess with how the league was set up this year too, a lot of teams, a lot of players, and probably the league itself didn't realize what situation they get into where maybe two or three smaller orgs or startup orgs would make it into the actual league.
Mhm.
And then they would have players on bad contracts, or the players wouldn't really sit around and think through all the ramifications of signing with a specific org.
Mhm.
And I know Envoy actually tweeted back at me, and he said that well, he pretty much admitted that they were being a little bit greedy when they signed those contracts originally with Midnight. So
Correct. Yeah.
really, they threw away their freedom for $500.
Yeah.
And I guess the only reason why you would want to do that, well, it would make sense for you to do that, is if you did not believe you would actually make it into the pro league. But with a
Mhm.
roster like that, those guys were slaying in their scrims and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when the roster
Yeah,
fell apart, they were, I believe, 6-1, 6-2. So
yeah, no,
they were
yeah.
definitely looking dangerous. It's definitely a what if that's gonna remain for this year. But I mean, with this talk specifically, we're looking to talk about franchising with 2020. So with that, do you think franchising will protect players from shining these quote unquote shady contracts? Be able to
Uh,
supply resources, like lawyers, agents, things like that.
well, yeah, I think it's going to be better for the players from a security standpoint. Right now, even guys like Crim6 are out there tweeting, making YouTube videos about how players need to get their own representation. Either that's an agent or even just a lawyer to review any of these contracts, or even just a real trusted advisor who knows what they're talking about. able to
Mhm.
think outside the box and foresee all sorts of random situations that might pop up. But next year with franchising, if we follow the Overwatch model, what's going to happen is that we're not going to have all these Wild West contracts out there anymore. We're going to have something called a UPC, called a Uniform Player Contract.
Okay.
And that's something that's used more in the NFL, NBA, or any of these larger leagues out there in traditional sports that have collectively bargained contracts and things like that. But really, the only thing you can change in an NBA contract is how much money the guy is going to make and for how long the contract's going to be. Everything else is set in stone. So it's really simple. Like, let's say I want to sign Kobe Bryant. He wants to come out of retirement and he wants to play for my team.
Mhm.
All I have to do is just write down the salary amount, write down the amount of years, make sure that follows the collective bargaining agreement rules of the NBA, and there's space under the salary cap. Send it over to him in 5 minutes. He'll sign it, send it back, and that's it. There's really nothing else for him to really read. So I think in that respect, it's going to be a little bit better for the players. Now, if we follow the Overwatch model right now,
Mhm.
minimum salary in Overwatch is $50,000 a year,
Okay.
but that's just the minimum.
And
Okay, I
that's
think
like for
there's
just like, the average run of the mill player. That's not anybody,
yeah,
specific,
but
a bigger name player.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think the stat is that the average salary actually in Overwatch is somewhere around 100,000.
Okay.
But that's the same minimum salary is 50,000, and on top of that, too, the teams are supposed to provide health benefits
Mhm.
and housing as well, too. So
Yeah,
that's
well that
some of that extra security. Yeah, that's some of the larger players, more popular players, were talking about having that extra security out there that everyone really wants, and that's something that's obviously going to come with franchising.
yeah. Yeah, well that's definitely a big problem. I mean, I know there's been a couple players that have tweeted out and they haven't had health care. They have health problems where they can attend an event or something. And that could actually be money out of their pockets because they don't have that revenue to make that back in. So you see Call of Duty potentially making that switch as well. Essentially just in other words, copy pasting and, helping these players have those resources like healthcare and benefits.
Definitely. I already see that as pretty much a guarantee on this. So that's the advantage of Call of Duty going second for franchising. Yes, there's something in the market called first mover advantage. There's also
Mhm.
something out there called second mover advantage. Second mover advantage, you can see what the other mistakes are out there that your predecessor made, and you can improve on the uh, things that they did correctly. So we can see that players might need some sort of guaranteed amount of salary in there. Maybe there's 50% buyout if you're terminated.
Okay.
Maybe players need some sort of set buyout figure. So if they really don't think it's working out with the team really just wants to hold them and sit them on the bench.
Mhm.
The player can pay some certain amount of money, or some other team can come by, pay some certain amount of money, get them out of that contract. Now, that might be a little bit tougher, especially for continuity for rosters in this league, especially when you're asking for entities to pay $25 million for a franchise spot.
Mhm.
Now, yep. And then if you think about like NFL, NBA, their contracts don't have set buyouts for the players to leave on their own accord. They could come to a negotiated buyout with their current team if for some reason they're riding the bench, they're on a high salary. Let's say they're at 15 million a year, and they're just pretty much a bench warmer at that point in time. They want to try to contribute on another team, even if it's only 2 minutes a game,
Mhm.
just so they can be part of a title chase for once. A lot of players and teams, they'll come to a negotiated buyout. So a player might say, "Okay, give me 5 million of this,"
Yeah.
and then that's it. And then the benefit for the team is you open up a roster space and you save money on it, and you obviously save money that counts against the salary cap. So you can sign a different player during the off season, or maybe even pick up another player in a trade that has a much higher salary than you're sending out. That's a rule that's in the NBA where the salaries have to be within a certain range of each other.
Okay.
That's just something that's collectively bargained. So I don't know if Call of Duty will necessarily have that, but I see maybe in 5, 10 years once revenues, if they go the way they're supposed to be projected, and we start getting all sorts of things like salary cap and competitive balance tax, that I'd see something of that sort, but that would require a players union and once again collectively bargained contracts. That's another issue altogether with a players union.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, people are kind of worried about that as well, especially with this year with some things going on with the Red Reserve situation where the players were kind of essentially just dropped on their neck without a house, which, obviously affects their gameplay. We also talked about previously the midnight situation. So do you think a players union would be good for Call of Duty, or do you think 2020 plans for franchising is already going to kind of set a path so that won't be needed?
Well, I think it's going to set paths that won't really be necessary, but at the same time, too, you have to think about what is the point of a union. Just think about the NFL Players Union. Why do these unions exist? Why do you have collectively bargained contracts?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason you have that is so that the league doesn't get hit with an antitrust lawsuit. On top of that, too, the reason why you would want to collectively bargain is so you can so you can get a great deal on your share of the revenue. So let's look at the NBA right now. So with the CBA that the players union has with the NBA itself,
And
players are
CBA
entitled.
meaning collective bargaining agreement, correct?
Yep,
Okay.
that's correct. So with the CBA there, and then in the NBA, 51% of basketball-related income is earmarked for the players. 49% gets divvied up between the owners.
Okay.
So BRI is as defined in the NBA CBA. I think it's all television revenue, certain merchandising sales, sorts of ancillary benefits the league might have. But the teams themselves get to keep their local merchandise, their own ticket sales, their own concessions, that sort of stuff. So let's say the NBA is what, a $5 billion business, so 2.6% of 2.75%. I mean 2.75 billion of
Yeah.
that 5 billion has to go to the players,
Okay.
no matter what. So,
So
but
go ahead. Sorry.
but yeah, but that goes into thinking about COD and how it's in kind of a weird state. Even Overwatch, even probably League of Legends right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, owners are okay with doing that sort of stuff if there's actually profit to split.
Yes.
Now, all the most ambitious projections for revenue on Overwatch League say that it's only going to be break even around year 3.
Okay.
Let's apply that to Call of Duty. So if you try to negotiate some sort of players union right now, there's no
Mm-hmm.
revenue to split. The first 2 years, the owners are losing money. So what incentive is there for the league and the owners to actually collectively bargain? And
So
what's the point of the players organizing to collectively bargain? There's really no profits to split for the first 2 years. I
okay.
see what I'm getting at?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean at that point you would be bargaining for something that doesn't exist at that point. Um,
Exactly.
so you already talked about it before. The $25 million price tag. It's a huge issue. A lot of people have problems with it, but you have publicly said that that's actually pretty low. What type of ROI is somebody expected to see an investment in something like this, especially Call of Duty, where the viewership is lower than the Overwatch League?
Okay, so here's the thing to think about with that franchise fee. So most people that were actually serious about purchasing a franchise spot,
Uh
most
huh.
of them were thinking the initial ask was going to be 40 to 50 million. They were willing to pay that. Now that $25 million figure, that's the minimum bid that Activision will accept.
Okay.
So you might have remembered during the last season when Overwatch went through their season 2 expansion where they picked up, I think, 8 more teams.
Yep.
They said they'd sell new markets, but bids would be between 25 million and 60 million.
Okay.
Think about it this way. If you want the Los Angeles area or you want the New York City area
Mhm.
as your home territory, since they're large media markets,
Yeah.
which should provide you more revenue,
Uh huh.
bidding the minimum 25 million is not going to get you that spot.
Mhm.
So that's something to think about, right?
Yeah.
Now, if let's say some entity wanted Albuquerque, New Mexico, or something like that, Activision would be like, "Oh hell yeah,
Uh
give us
huh.
that 25 million all day." You know what? We're even going to do you a favor. Only give us 22 million. You see, but
Yeah,
you
that
want
makes
LA,
sense.
you want New York, you want something like that, you're going to be paying way more than that 25 million. Now, with that high franchise fee, I know Reddit and people on Twitter initially were thinking, "Oh, hey, COD should only really franchise out for 1 million to 5 million
Yeah.
max on a fee." If you think about it, that wouldn't really make sense for Activision to do. And here's why. Because at that fee, when you purchase that franchise slot, you become a perpetual revenue partner with Activision for one of the largest video game IPs in history. Now, here's the thing too: Call of Duty, the revenues from the game itself, sales of it, are over what, $20 billion lifetime to date.
Yeah, I mean,
Are
it seems like each Call of Duty is breaking the
Yeah,
record that's set right before it. Yeah.
yeah, that is gigantic. Now remember, I think what's the NFL's yearly revenue right now? What, 4 billion, I
Oh
believe.
God, yeah. I think the last I saw it was like
So,
three, upwards three. Yeah, so four would be accurate.
but so and that goes in some other interesting discussions. So I guess the buy-in price for Overwatch itself, if you want to play the game right now, what, $30, I believe. Eventually, I do see Overwatch going free to play. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens next year too.
Yeah, that's what people were
But with
thinking,
Call,
especially with the player base going down.
well, that's the thing. If you're trying to drive a lot of viewership or a large player base, the game needs to be free because
Well, that brings us
not
to
everybody
another
can afford
question too. I
$60.
was about to say Call of Duty $60 every year. So, what do you think's gonna happen with that? Is the price gonna change, or are people just gonna be, oh, it's another COD, still gonna buy it?
I think they're going to keep it around 60 for the next few years until they see a dip in sales.
Okay.
And eventually, they might go to a free-to-play model, especially if the league starts churning out massive revenues from broadcast rights, merchandising, or anything like that. Then they're going to say, "Oh, hey, well, it's better if we have more participation in the game, so we can improve the product by getting more potential players down the pipeline. They'll make it to the pros."
Mhm.
Now, think about it. So if there's 1 million players as opposed to 10 million players or something, if you have a group of 10 million players, they'll probably provide a better top 64 players at the end of the day
Yeah.
than if you only had a pool of 1 million players. That's why I see Activision going to eventually. That might be 3 years down the line before I see Call of Duty going free to play, but the signs of it are there. So I think you guys saw that like Call of Duty Mobile
Yep.
was advertised and released. See, that's free to play as well. So it's like they're kind of testing the waters to see if we have some sort of mobile game or we have some sort of IP that's free to play, will increase the player base. And
Yeah.
I think that's really what they're mainly testing out with that right now.
So with the price tag being $25 million, some of the orgs that are in Call of Duty right now doesn't seem like they have the money for that. So who do you think are going to be the next new faces in Call of Duty? Is it going to be organizations like Cloud9 TSM, or are we going to be seeing some people that we may not be familiar with?
Oh, so that's a valid concern as well too. So $25 million minimum franchise fee, yes, that is a giant chunk of money.
Mm,
Especially when you see a lot of teams right now, organizations, they're doing a Series A, Series B, and they're only raising 10 to 15 million each round or so.
yeah.
I think Gen G raised what, 36 or 46. They announced that earlier today.
Yeah,
You have to remember though,
they just closed out. I believe it was 36, but I could be
yeah.
wrong on that.
That's the thing fans aren't understanding. If a
Uh,
organization,
Correct me on that one. It is 46.
okay. So the thing is too that people don't understand that if an organization raises 46 million in Series B or so, not all of that 46 is supposed to be earmarked towards franchise fees.
Mm,
One is to purchase out equity, so some of the early stakeholders can have an exit. The rest is also set aside for capital expenditures or standard day-to-day operations, things like payroll. But that's the other thing with these franchise fees for Call of Duty League. That 25, just because you have 25 million doesn't mean Activision will sell you a spot. Why? Because if you only have $25 million and you pay that to Activision, you now have $0. How are you going to make payroll? So
exactly.
Activision's really looking for groups that have an umbrella amount of probably at least another 25 million on top of that,
Okay.
25 to 75 million. So to be on the safe side, you should probably be investing about or earmarking about $60 million towards the Call of Duty League.
Okay.
Now, I'm sorry, what was oh yeah, to go back to what you're asking about traditional organizations in Call of Duty and what faces we might see
Yeah.
next season. My thought is that these mega orgs that really are worth about $150 million, so like the C9s, the TSMs, those mega organizations, I think we get a few of them in Call of Duty. But then outside of that, I believe it's just going to be brand new faces, corporate ownership groups, or guys like Robert Kraft. Hold the jokes. Yes. Guys like Andy Miller, guys like Stan Kroenke, guys like Michael Dell. Just guys with so much cash on hand that $25 million is just dropping in the bucket to them. And I hate to say it, but I think a lot of these traditional orgs that we have in Call of Duty today will not be around next year. So I don't want to name any organization names because I don't want to slight anybody, and I don't know their
Yeah, no, we don't need
financial
to.
situations.
No,
So
we don't need to do that. Nah. But how do you think the community is going to react to that? I mean, there's even rumors going around that they just want organizations to go by a new entity name, the way that the Overwatch League did. So, how is the Call of Duty community going to react if everything stands theoretically true that 2020 we won't be seeing Optic Gaming on the big screen anymore or FaZe? Like, they've been around for 10 years. How's that going to react? How's that going to work?
well, I never said Optic or Face wouldn't be around
No, no,
next year
no.
or
That was
anything
my
like that.
example. My example. My
Okay,
example.
okay.
I will make that completely clear. That was my example, not Edgar's.
All right. So basically though, I think with anything, people are hesitant to have any sort of change and they want to stay with what they know. But I think if you take a deeper dive and think into what the goal is of the Call of Duty League from Activision,
Mhm.
see that it makes no sense to actually have organization names, and city-based franchising is really the way to go. Because let's imagine that we had 10 slots in the league, right?
Okay.
And let's say FaZe has slot number 1.
Okay.
And then 3 years later, they sell that spot to Team Edgar or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So Team Edgar now sits in slot number 1. Then let's
Okay.
say another year goes by, and FaZe decides to buy slot number 7 from another team.
Mhm.
Where is the equity and value being built in slot number 1? You keep the organization names, and FaZe can jump from slot number 1 to slot number 7, back to slot number 2, maybe to slot number 10. See what I'm saying here?
Yeah. So
So
it actually, from people, actually gives it a little bit more flexibility.
yeah. And that's really what Activision's trying to do, though. They want the valuations of these actual franchises and brand new entities
Mhm.
to grow in value. That's what the NBA does. That's what the NFL does. NHL,
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, same thing. They don't want Hank Steinbrenner of the New York Yankees to sell
Mhm.
the Yankees for $4.6 billion. Then go buy the Florida Marlins out from his boy Derek Jeter for $1.1 billion, and then have all the fans rush over there.
Yeah.
Kind of see what I mean? It doesn't make any sense from a business point of view because then you're sitting on an asset that you can't sell. So if you can't sell the asset, what is the value of that asset? It's actually zero. And that's
True.
what Activision
True.
does not want to have happen. That's really why these organization names are going to be gone. I can see something where it's like Overwatch League, where I guess
Maybe
if
like the
you're a
colors
market,
are
yeah,
implemented.
exactly. So it's kind of like a nod towards your organization. So I
Yeah.
guess with Houston Outlaws, same
Yeah.
color
They have the
scheme as
green and the
Optic
black and the
Game.
white.
Yep,
Mhm.
exactly. So I can see something like that happening.
Okay.
But and definitely you're not going to be able to use Overwatch team names because they're supposed to be completely separate entities. Just like what is it? The LA Kings, the hockey team,
Mhm.
the NHL have their own name, and the Lakers, LA Lakers basketball team, have their own name. Even if
Yeah.
they have the same ownership, you can't really use that same name between both leagues because they're supposed to be separate entities.
Okay, so in that case, that's really interesting because for me anyway, I'm located in Jersey. My closest, biggest sports city is Philadelphia, where obviously Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, all of that. So now teams are gonna start getting, or cities are gonna be start getting their own like esports groups. Like people are completely interested in their own quote unquote traditional sports. Then you can have people that are interested in esports. So with that in mind, obviously the biggest hold right now for some of these Call of Duty teams are their personalities. So for Optic, you have your Crim and your Scumps, FaZe, Zuma, Attach, E United, R Cities, Pristini. Um, are these duos going to be breaking up? Are we going to be seeing a huge roster changes in 2020? Or do you see things maybe sticking the same and people staying loyal?
Well, that's an interesting question because some teams might come in with a budget. Some might come in with a certain mindset of we don't want to spend more than this, or we're going to
Hmm.
value this player at that. And some other team might value the other player more. And
Because you
like I
also
said, let's.
publicly raised all the salaries this year for everybody else as well. You and Nate Shot had a hand in that. So,
I don't know about that,
with more
but
money coming
basically,
in, it's definitely going to get interesting next year. I'm
well,
curious to hear your thoughts, especially with you being looking on the outside, but you are on the inside.
I don't know about that. But here's the other thing to remember too: just because the owner of a business might have a lot of money doesn't
Hmm.
mean that they're going to spend it in a stupid fashion if there's no ROI there.
Okay.
Remember, like I said, best projections for Overwatch League right now are break even by year 3.
Yeah.
So, what actually drives these higher salaries for these players? It's because it builds value for your organization, not your organization, your franchise. And because, let's say, if my team's exciting, more people are going to want to watch. That means more advertising dollars.
Hmm.
So it's all tied into that. So it's like when LeBron James left the Cavaliers, was it the net worth? The valuation of the Cleveland Cavaliers dropped by $150 million overnight
Hmm.
because they just weren't
Everybody
must-watch TV
rioted.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
so yeah, I can see these players splitting up. So and especially when the league gets more professional and esports, especially Call of Duty, becomes more ubiquitous in the homes and just generally all around the world right now.
Hmm.
So the Morris twins in the NBA, Markeith and Marcus Morris, they always wanted to play together, but trades happen,
Yeah.
or one team doesn't have enough money to sign both of them, or one team doesn't want both of them. Things like that happen, and I think eventually players are going to. Well, I don't want to say they're going to be chasing the money, but let's just say they're going to make a business decision, and realize that hey, even though we're not on the same team anymore, we can still be really good friends,
Hmm.
or or Arceus is still going to be Pristini's brother. So I think eventually that we're going to see all these players sort of split up. I don't want to say it's going to be every man for himself, but let's just say it's going to mirror traditional sports leagues.
Hmm. There's a couple questions that actually was submitted to you by a Call of Duty player. And they feel that they are personally in the dark. What's coming next year with 2020? I mean, it's their jobs on the line. What do you think players should be expecting for next year?
Uh, Personally, I would, if I were a player, I would study the current Overwatch model right now. So next year, Overwatch teams are supposed to start playing all of their matches out of their home markets.
Hmm.
Currently, they've been playing out of the Burbank studio right there in
Yeah.
California. Obviously that studio is going to be available. So what I would see is these Call of Duty teams are probably all going to be playing their matches out of that studio. So betting as a betting guy, I would say, hey, you guys are going to be living in LA for about 2 years, and then I could also see Call of Duty experimenting with this whole homestand weekend concept,
Yeah.
like this year with I guess the Dallas Fuel and the Atlanta, what's the Atlanta Overwatch team, and I guess Philadelphia Fusion. They're
Yeah,
supposed to
they
run
just announced
few
that
home market.
a stadium getting built right along with all the other major sports stadiums in downtown
Yep,
Philly.
definitely. But so I see maybe even next year, or at the very least by year 2, we'd see some test runs of homestand weekends, because this year it's supposed to be those 3 Overwatch teams that are doing home market games, just one,
Yeah.
just ease them into it. It's really interesting too, and it's actually really good for the future outlook that the Dallas Fuel actually sold out their whole stadium, all 4,500 tickets
Wow.
immediately. I think that's pretty cool. So
That is
I
pretty
imagine,
cool. I mean, especially something that launched what 2 years ago.
yep, exactly. And yeah, so I see that eventually making its way over to Call of Duty as well. But to go back to what you're saying, if I were a player, I would study the Overwatch model in detail,
Okay.
and I would think that you'd be playing out of Burbank Studios for the next 2 years, and then maybe in year 2 having homestand games, homestand weekends,
Mhm.
something along that sort. But outside of that, I know players are worried about future security.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you look at the Overwatch model, you guys are getting built-in security in these contracts, getting health insurance, getting housing covered. And I also believe Overwatch contracts are at least partially guaranteed, so you can't really be dropped on your head and get no paycheck
So then,
overnight.
so then, theoretically, red reserve situations won't be happening, or midnight situations won't be happening where players.
Well, well,
No?
here's the thing, though.
Okay.
Okay. Oh no, 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 well, here's the thing.
Hit me with
Okay,
it.
so the problem with a lot of organizations around these days, not just in Call of Duty but around esports,
Hmm.
is that they don't really have the capital or the ROI to be handing out certain contracts like this, and it becomes a liquidity issue for them. So owners owners that will pretty much run out of cash and mismanage their cash will not be around next year at all anyway,
Hmm.
because Activision isn't going to just grant a franchise spot some guy who was able to raise $26 million
Hmm.
or just won the lottery yesterday or something. Even if he has $50 million, I don't see it happening.
You're gonna have to show some type of record that you know what you're
Yeah.
doing as an
Yep.
organization.
And then if you also look at the Overwatch League, the original teams in the Overwatch League, all those owners, these guys were best in class type of owners. Very first owner that was signed up was Robert Kraft,
Oh
owner of the
yeah,
New England Patriots.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
not
it
just
was
some
huge
random
news.
Joe Schmoes that are out there. Like guys that have a real track record of success, have connections everywhere. And just because you have 25, 50, even $75 million from your Powerball jackpot or something doesn't mean Activision is going to want to partner with you.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so Red Reserve, Midnight, XG situation, that's not going to be a thing, and that should excite players because you're going to have guys that are partnering for the long term with Activision. Also, with this franchising, this cannot fail. Let's say Bobby Kotick, CEO of Activision, only sells 10 slots,
Hmm.
even though I've heard interest is really high for slots right now.
Can you
Let's
give
just say
us
he sells
like
10.
an
I can't.
interest on how many?
Let's just say I don't think minimum bids are going to be accepted.
Okay,
Let's just put it that way.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
But let's just say minimum bids. Only 10 slots are sold at $25 million each. That's $250 million being paid to Activision by business leaders, sports icons, like real power players in whatever industry they're in. Activision knows this, and they're not going to screw them over and just crash the league out after 2, 3 years. Also, something like this also guarantees that Call of Duty is going to be made for at least another decade.
Hmm.
I know a lot of players and fans out there are like, when is this series ever going to die? Oh my God, we're on like COD 15 right now. Like, that's always a valid concern. Is this
Hmm.
series going to get canceled overnight because sales figures are this, sales
Yeah.
figures are that? We want to move in a different direction. But with franchising coming in, it's long term. It's a long term commitment from Activision to work on Call of Duty, produce Call of Duty, to produce at highest levels so they can grow their league, grow the valuation of these franchises, make a lot of money. And that's basically it. And like I said, you're going to have best in class ownership coming in. So no more of these guys who, I don't know, that pay you through PayPal instead of an ACH transfer on the 15th and 31st of the
We're
month.
not gonna get copy paste NDAs anymore.
Exactly, that sort of stuff. No more copy paste documents where they have the wrong org name because they Googled esports contract.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So we're definitely going to be seeing a lot more of a professional COD where, in that case, we won't be having the drama around anymore, and maybe things will be a little bit more, cleaner and easier. But one of the big things in 2018 and 2019 that really caught, the entire Call of Duty's community's attention is COD Burner. He gonna be around for 2020?
He's still around now.
He's lurking.
Uh, I honestly, I don't know. I don't even bother really going on Reddit too much these days. I mean, if somebody links me a thread, something funny is on there, sure. I mean, I've been hanging out on the Battlefield subreddit. I'm a big Battlefield fan.
Okay.
Just looking at the mess of what that game is right now, seeing if they're actually going to patch anything in it. You know how that goes. But I don't know. I think there's always going to be some sort of leakers, some sort, because that's how it is in any business.
Yeah.
The NBA or NFL. I mean, you got guys like Adam Schefter, you got guys like John Heyman in the MLB. of guys like Wash and his Wash bombs in the
Yeah, but
NBA.
those guys also like attach their name to it. It's not some guy behind an account. Like
That's
this is
that's
real.
that's true. That's true too. But I do think their level of access is going to be cut down severely, and here's why. Because think about it this way: you guys hear nothing about what's going on behind the scenes with CWL franchising, right?
Mhm.
And that's because it's only mainly top level guys that are involved in it.
Yeah.
People who would never leak. Now, I know this is probably going to be a really unpopular opinion with players when I say this, and I'm friends with a few players. But when I say
Yeah, there's a
this,
couple lurking in here right now.
okay,
So
when I say this, you guys are actually to blame for this burner existing, and here's why. You guys are leaking roster moves to each other, your own team's plans. So you guys are probably breaking an NDA of your own with your own team. Now, if you guys never did that, this guy probably wouldn't exist. Maybe that's too much of a hot take, but that's the way I feel about it, right?
it's
So why get
it's a
mad at
take.
the leaker? Yeah, why get mad at the leaker when you yourself should not be leaking information to other players, to your competitors? That's the way I see it, and I do know. Well, we can actually look back to last season. Yeah,
I mean, the
NBA.
cod
So,
burner really started poking up. I believe it was it Anaheim that he poked up or
uh,
Atlanta.
I
And
I don't know.
his first post was essentially exposing you, which was interesting. So,
Okay. Well,
um,
I haven't really bothered reading any of that stuff because I think I clicked on one of those threads and it looked like really bad fan fiction. So,
mhm.
you know, it's okay.
no,
Um,
no, you're fair. Yeah, but I mean, with that, I mean, the cod burner's first thing was you. So, what was his
I don't
reaning
know.
for that? That's interesting. But
I
either
don't
way,
know.
that's
Well,
that's
people.
speculation.
No, exactly. I don't even know what was in those posts. I didn't even bother reading them. I really like commenting on random speculation. But to go back to what I said, where information is going to be held a lot more closely,
Mhm.
there's going to be consequences for leaking. This past off season, the GM of the Philadelphia 76ers, his name was Brian Colangelo.
Mhm.
Turned out that he had some burner Twitter accounts and he was leaking team moves
I'm
or
aware.
information about, oh, there you go,
Mhm.
about players being injured and that sort of stuff. And the feds actually investigated him a little too because they want to see, hey, are you actually leaking for gambling purposes for these handicappers?
Mhm.
Right? So yeah, I also see it where players aren't going to know about it until these moves are already done, and by then, league's going to be notified. The teams can already put out a press release that hey, we moved this player, we acquired this player, and that's that. Really,
Yeah.
the only moves that I believe are going to be leaked are if, let's say, somebody's talking to player Y and they want to sign them for X amount of dollars. Maybe their agent might leak that,
Mhm.
some news source, just to try to put it out there, see if some other team will bite on that. And we saw this a lot in this past offseason in Major League Baseball with Manny Machado and Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
Dan Lozano is Manny Machado's agent, and he wasn't really getting the offers he wanted, so he leaked something like 225 over, I think, 8 years was his highest offer. And then I got the Padres eventually to bite on something a little bit higher. Same thing with Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
But generally, I see those would be the only real leaks that we would see next year. So all of these other rogue leakers, I don't really see them as being an issue in the future. And because just information is just going to be that much more tightly controlled. And
Yeah, players are going
I,
to be held to their contracts a little bit more tighter.
definitely, and don't think that guys like Andy Miller or Steve Kroenke won't sue you for violating an NDA. Guys have armies of attorneys just ready to do this, just literally sitting there twiddling their thumbs,
Yeah,
ready to
and
go to court for these billionaires.
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Some of these players, when things happen, they aren't exactly nice or quiet about it. Um, do you think some of these players are going to be able to handle the maturity change going in the next year?
Oh, if they don't, I figure they won't last in the league too long. But I think most of them will be able to adapt, and especially with these newer players coming up in the scene. So guys like Simp.
Yeah.
Hey, let's look at a guy like Simp. Just added to the United roster. He's still in high school, so he's used to waking up at 6 a.m. every day, going to school, doing his schoolwork, coming home, grinding COD till 2 a.m., going to sleep, then repeating it over and over. The
Mhm.
kid is disciplined. That's what that's the way I see this industry is going to move, especially the player base grows. If Call of Duty goes free to play, because it's just going to be more kids there. They're eventually going to be filtered out. The guys who aren't dedicated, the ones who can adapt, guys who can't follow rules, they just simply won't make it to the pros unless they are that good, where they are such a generational talent where a team will put up their garbage of showing up late to scrims, of tweeting questionable things.
Yeah, I
I
mean, we
think
saw that with XQC. He got dropped for the BS, so to say. So, that might
oh,
be a possibility
that's,
next year for Call of Duty.
that's well, possible. Well, I know if we follow the Overwatch model, there are going to be fines everywhere for some of this behavior that's out there right now. And I know some people are going to say that it's really cutting down on the personalities and the grassroots feel that Call of Duty has. And honestly, if this is what people want, if people want Call of Duty to grow, esports to grow, it needs to get more of a mainstream audience. It needs to be ubiquitous in ubiquitous water cooler talk, or it needs to be
Hmm.
discussed in the kitchen over breakfast with your mom or your dad or something like that. And I guess sponsors like Disney, they're not going to want to sponsor a team that has a roster full of guys who are tweeting world star hip hop stuff. So
Yeah.
eventually, eventually players will adapt to it, and teams will make them adapt to it because there's going to be a ton of money on the line, not just for players but for the teams themselves.
Yeah, I mean, with that in mind, do you think the COD reputation and his community will affect the CWL's ability to get sponsors for next year?
I don't see that happening at all because right now we're already getting some high level title sponsors. So Game Fuel is obviously a PepsiCo product.
Yeah.
We still have Sony, PlayStation, and then there's probably some larger, more non-endemic sponsors coming in. And that's the other thing to remember: like the image of this league is going to be controlled down to a T. If you step out of line, you're going to get squashed. Just look at Overwatch League. If you criticize the patch, you're fined $10,000. You're not even allowed to publicly criticize balance patches.
Oh gee. Oh my goodness. This community is in for a
Uh,
rock next year.
but then it's also mirrored to other sports leagues. You get fined $15,000 for criticizing officiating in an NBA game.
Yeah.
Jeff Van Gundy back in the day, forgot what the series was when he was the coach of the Houston Rockets. Forgot who they were playing, but he insinuated that a referee told him that the league said to referee Yao Ming a little bit differently. The league fined him $100,000
Really? I did not know
for,
that. That's an interesting
for,
fact.
for questioning the integrity of their product. And you kind of see this eventually happening. Not even just with Activision, but
Hmm.
EA, especially right there when they have a different paradigm, obviously, of partner with these actual FIFA teams. I mean, we can even look at 2K League. Even Riot will probably eventually start doing the same.
Hmm.
But this will happen more often, a lot more severely when there's a lot more money involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Another question that was actually asked by somebody was, how do you feel about geological esports? Do you think esports will be able to transfer to the UK, especially Call of Duty, or do you see it sticking in NA?
Well, that's kind of a tough question because some games just have more appeal in certain countries or certain areas of the world than other games do. So, for example, I guess Gears of War is really big in Mexico.
Yes.
In the United States, I don't know. I don't know how many players play in the United States. And down in
Gears of
Brazil,
War
count.
typically it's
Yeah.
bigger in South America and North America. Overseas, not so much.
Okay. Then I guess down in Brazil, obviously, Counter Strike is really big there, but then that's pretty big in Europe, pretty big in the United States as well
Mm.
too. So I think it's really just well, like I said, it's a tough question. Call of Duty going to EU. EU is actually a really large market. There's a lot of interest for Call of Duty there. So I see franchise over in Paris, franchise over in London, um, one maybe in Madrid
Okay.
being pretty successful.
Okay. So for this year, I don't know if you can specifically say or not, but is CWL looking to stay in NA, or are they open to using other openings? Like, I know the Overwatch League has openings in, Paris, Seoul, you know. What do you think?
Oh, well, let's look back to the first year of Overwatch. So we already had some international teams, and it's because Activision's trying to still get that worldwide
Mm-hmm.
appeal.
Yeah.
Now, whether we're going to have Call of Duty teams out there, I guess what the agreement was with the Overwatch teams was that they would have right of first refusal over their region where they currently have their Overwatch team. So, because Cloud9 owns the London Spitfire, so they would get
Yeah.
first dibs on the London CWL franchise. But I guess we could see it that way. But I, I think as long as the bids and the pitch for specific cities make sense, then Activision will grant a franchise there.
Mm-hmm.
You could, so if you could convince them somehow that I don't know somewhere in Micronesia is the best place for a franchise, and you're willing to pay the fee, they'll give it to you.
Okay. Um, Another question that we got was, can Edgar talk about the alienation of reporting roster moves? So I guess with
Um.
that specifically, I guess he's talking
Oh.
about, maybe some people getting cut off from roster moves due to behind the scenes connections.
What do you mean specifically? Like when
So,
pro when?
apparently one of the situations that happened recently was that it was rumored that Attach would be going back to FaZe. However, it is now rumored again that he's going to be staying on EG. And that might be because of behind the scenes connections, so to say. Do you think personal connections will be an issue for CWL next year? Or is it all going to be on paper, per lawyers, professional 100%?
Professional 100%. Players won't even have any real say in roster moves. It's going to be up to the GMs of the team that make these moves, and players are going to be informed later. I also see the benefit of this because let's say we actually, some team actually tried to trade a player, and
Mm-hmm.
that trade fell through. If the player ever knew about it, then they might lose some confidence in their own gameplay. They might resent management. So I don't see friendships keeping rosters together when players won't be in charge of the roster moves to begin with. Now I
Okay.
could see where some ex industry person gets hired to be a GM as a team.
Mm-hmm.
They might throw a bone to one of their friends, put them on in one of their substitute slots, or
But
put them on their
so
contenders
more
team.
so more
But
on the staff level than an actual player level, if
yes,
anything. Okay. Um. Well, we're getting to the end here of the hour, so one other question that we had from somebody was that, are you looking to buy a franchise spot?
oh, if I was, I wouldn't admit it on a podcast. I mean, that's how we're just gonna have to go right now.
That's fair. That's fair. So for you being a businessman, heading into 2020, what are some things you want to see change?
Specifically with Call of Duty
Yeah,
or
specifically with
esports
Call
or
of Duty.
franchising. Oh, well, with Call of Duty, I've always said that I don't understand. Well, I do understand why we're still playing the game on PlayStation 4s, even though they're technically inferior to an Xbox One X. I would eventually like to see a move to more powerful hardware because right now the Xbox One X can pump out 120 FPS, and it after the firmware update, it can actually do 1080p 120 hertz refresh rate. So I don't really understand why people like playing on a 60 hertz monitor or
Mm-hmm.
60 hertz refresh for a first person shooter. I would like to see something like that happen, but I mean, if Sony still has the exclusivity contract on it,
Yeah, I
then we're
know a
not going
couple
to see
people
anything
have
change.
tweeted out, pro players specifically. I believe Clayster. He wants Call of Duty back on Xbox, but it seems like Sony has that exclusivity for right now.
Yep. Of course, like I said, it's all a money game,
Mm-hmm.
but man, I would like to see that too because issues of getting cornered or cameraed or anything like that, those should be mitigated with double the refresh rate.
Okay. Um, how do you feel about Blizzard's stance on certain memes and hand signals? That's an interesting one, especially considering I believe it was 2 weeks ago. Blizzard staff told a member of the audience that they could not do the OK hand signal due to it being labeled as a white power symbol. Um, Call of Duty isn't so PC. You think implementations are going to be made for that next year?
Do I think it's going to happen? Probably. Do I
Mhm.
agree with it? For the most part, no.
Okay.
I think at times that well, it's well within Activision's rights to want to control the image of the league and not offend any sort of viewers or whatever. But I think some of these rules that they're enforcing are a little bit draconian and
Mhm.
should be put up for review, especially if something as innocuous as an OK hand symbol. I mean, think about it this way: in the NBA, when Steph Curry hits a three, he's doing the three goggles, doing the double OK sign up against his eyes. Nobody
Mhm.
really has a problem with that.
I mean, when Scump
But
does the 3-0, it's the OK symbol. It's yeah.
yeah, so I think that specific incident that specific incident needs to be reviewed, but I do foresee them implementing all sorts of bans like that. Like you can't really walk into an NBA stadium these days with a picture
Mhm.
of LeBron and saying "F you, LeBron" on it or something like that. It's gonna get thrown out, or they'll take that banner from you. And also, when I was at the Super Bowl, they weren't allowing any sort of signs that could be seen as advertisements. So
Mhm.
like I said, it's well within Activision Blizzard's rights to mandate what sort of fan behavior is not allowed in a venue, but that doesn't mean I necessarily agree with it.
Mhm.
But if that's their rules, and you do have to follow it.
Yeah, I think, and that's another thing. People are going to be getting a hard awakening next year. Call of Duty's going to be seeing a huge shift. Call of Duty grew up from a console-based game with trick shotting and cursing out kids through Xbox Live, and now, I mean, coaches are going to be walking on stage, possibly wearing suits. It's going to be a different time.
It
Um,
definitely will be.
yeah. I mean, for me personally, as a Call of Duty fan, I'm excited for it. Um, but the Call of Duty community is extremely loyal and they don't like change. Um, so I'm really intrigued to see how some of these changes are going to affect the community. But I think at the end of the day, if a player's going to be playing Call of Duty, they're going to watch regardless, even if they don't like what rules are implemented or not.
Of course, I mean some people really will not watch. I mean, it's a given. Even if players are mandated that they need to wear pants and they can't wear shorts out on stage, somebody is going to be offended,
Of course.
or that Brandon can't take his shoes off at land or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I heard there's something about that where he takes his shoes off, his socks off. I've never personally seen it. I know Brandon is a really good kid. I
Yeah, I mean, hey,
don't
look,
know. I
what,
think that's a little
yo,
weird
it,
too,
bro,
but
if it helps him fry, it helps him fry. Like,
exactly. But yeah, so I do see some players, not players, some viewers not watching, or they're going to have a hard time adapting. But I think eventually they're going to come around, especially when a lot of people really like watching Seth because Seth is an engaging personality,
mm-hmm.
awesome player, really great face for the sport. And I think players, well, viewers at the end of the day want to be entertained. They want to see high level gameplay. They want to see Dashy 180ing people left and right like he's running a mouse and keyboard. That's what
Mm-hmm.
people want to see. They want to be entertained. They don't want to sit there and watch, I don't know, random like Division 3 or whatever. I don't know how the skill divisions work in Call of Duty. I don't even play the game. But that's basically it. It's like, why do more people watch the NBA? Why do people watch college football as opposed to games at your local YMCA?
Yeah,
So see that skill level, see things being done that the average person cannot do.
that's. I don't know, man. Going into next year, the big thing I think that's really sticking on people's minds right now is the fact that it's going to be city based, or at least rumored that it's going to be city based anyway. And people feel really weird about that, especially the fact that I know. I mean, some people are going to feel divided, um, especially if their one team's going to be based in a city where that city is their team of their own. So for me, for instance, I'm an Optic fan. Would I theoretically be rooting for Optic, or am I going to be rooting for my Philadelphia home Call of Duty team? Um,
Well,
that's me
well,
anyway.
you know what I would say in that situation.
Mhm.
I wouldn't care what anybody else thinks. If you want to root for the roster that has the majority of the current Optic gaming roster, go for it. Like I see this argument out there on Reddit and on Twitter where people are like, "Well, I'm not gonna watch blah 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 because well, yeah, I'm from here, but I don't know any of these players or whatever, or I'm from there, or these players are playing there, so I can't be fans with them anymore. So then I sit there and think about it. And a lot of people I also see are tweeting about the Champions League matches going on right now. A lot of these people tweeting about it are Americans. I'm
Mm-hmm.
willing to bet half of them tweeting about it have never been to Barcelona, yet they're FC Barcelona fans,
Yep.
or you're an Ajax fan or a Juventus fan. So if you want to be a fan of a certain team, like it is right now, if you're a soccer fan in the United States, you don't need to cheer for the New York Revolution. You don't need to cheer for what are the other MLS teams? The Seattle Sounders. I mean, if you just really want to watch EPL or you want to watch La Liga, you're for Manchester City,
Mm-hmm.
you're for Tottenham, go ahead and do it. Be a fan of that. Watch what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy. Who cares about all this other stuff? If you want to be a fan of Seth, fine. I mean, he's a great kid to be a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you also see this in other sports too. So there's, believe it or not, Vince Carter is still playing basketball. And
Yeah,
there's
he's
a
playing up in
large
Canada, right?
yeah. There's a large contingent of people that are straight up Vince Carter fans. And
Yeah.
all throughout his career, no matter what team he was traded to, they would become fans of that team just to watch him play. And just like there's LeBron fans out there. It happens. And if that's what makes you happy and that's what you want to do, then go for it. If you want to cheer for Optic, even though they might be Houston, I don't know, Houston Horses or whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know what team name they would have.
Mm-hmm.
And you live in Seattle and there's a Seattle team, cheer for Optic.
Yeah.
Cheer, but although at the same time too, I do think it's a little odd though that some people are hung up cheering for a certain organization, because let's think about it this way, okay? Let's say you live in Los Angeles. Who is
Mm-hmm.
your baseball team?
Dodgers, right?
The Dodgers, correct? Who is your NFL team?
It's the Rams right now, correct?
It's the Rams.
Yeah.
And who is most likely your basketball team?
Clippers.
Clippers or Lakers, right?
Yeah.
But but if you are a Rams fan, why are you a Rams fan? Why are if you I mean if you're a Rams fan, why are you also a Laker fan?
Mm-hmm.
Stan Kroenke also owns the Colorado Avalanche and he owns the Denver Nuggets in the NBA. So why are you not an LA Rams fan, a Denver Nuggets fan? And same owner, right? Or how about this? Mike Ilitch owns the Tigers, he still owns the Red Wings, and he also owns Little Caesars Pizza. So if you're a Red Wings fan, why aren't you just always eating Little Caesars Pizza? Why are you ordering Papa John's or Pizza Hut or something like that?
Yeah.
So you kind of see what I'm getting at here.
Yeah.
Me, the idea of cheering for an ownership group is a little odd to me. It's like cheer for whatever team you want to cheer for. Now, I guess if you really like Mike Ilitch's stuff, fine, cheer for all of his businesses, all of his teams. That's perfectly fine. But think
Yeah.
about it though. Most
Yeah.
people living in LA, they cheer for the Rams. And they
Yeah.
cheer for the Lakers, but the Lakers are a direct competitor of the Rams owner's NBA franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense? No. But that's what it is. People want to cheer for whatever teams they want to cheer for. If it's based on a regional association, so be it.
Yeah. And I think, specifically for Call of Duty, there is no region to hold them. It's the players. So, I mean, do you think people are loyal to the organizations or loyal to the players?
Honestly, I think they're loyal to the players, and here's why. Okay, so let's assume Hex, Scump, Crim6, Karma, Dashy, Tej, all
Mm-hmm.
those guys go to some random team. They start their own random team.
Yep.
It's everybody that's still in optics. The guys like Rally, guys like Hitch,
Mm-hmm.
all those guys. They go start their own new org or something. I'm willing to bet the majority of those fans are going to switch to that new one.
Yeah, that's what one
Uh,
person was saying in the chat, that if Crim, Karma, and Scump leave, their fan base is dead.
Yeah, well, I
I
don't know
wouldn't.
about
Yeah,
that
I wouldn't
because,
know about dead.
I
It
don't
would
know.
suffer.
They got an Overwatch team. They got a CS:GO team.
Yeah,
They
but
got a
I
League
mean
of Legends
specifically
team.
for
Yeah.
that, I think it's because people grew up with these organizations once they started, and for them, it's Optic is everything a city represents for them, regardless of the game. Um, and people are just loyal, and that's what people say. I mean, yeah, this person said it here. People thought Optic was gonna suffer when Nadeshot left, but Nadeshot went and made something else, and Optic still stood. So, Um, I think it's really easy for people to speculate and say one thing over another, but at the end of the day, Call of Duty's been around for 10 years and it's going to be facing a huge change in 2020. And me personally, it's going to stay. It's going to grow. I think the franchising league is awesome for Call of Duty, especially to copy the Overwatch league. Allegedly anyway, I don't know what's going on. But it's been great just to like talk to you and hear your opinions on everything. I've asked a couple questions from people in the chat. Um, yeah, I mean, if
Yeah,
there's anything else, honestly, you want to add, go for it, Edgar.
man. Yeah, Call of Duty is going to be around, and I'm going to say it's going to be around for at least a decade. And if Activision has their way, it's going to be around forever, especially with this franchising coming in here too. Because if this league fails, a lot of people are going to be out of a job, and a lot of people are going to be extremely upset with Activision as a publisher.
Mm,
Guys like Robert Kraft. I mean, let's imagine Jeff Bezos gets a team, he buys in for something like that, and then
yeah.
that investment flat out fails like that. That dude is going to be so upset.
I
So
mean, I think
with
some
the,
people are also a little bit scared as well because of the H1Z1 league. Obviously, it's not nearly the size of what Blizzard has planned for Call of Duty, but there's a little bit of concern behind it.
well, that's true too, but I guess with H1Z1, that the talking to an ex player in that league, from what I can gather, it's that pretty much one promoter just had a pool of cash and was like, oh hey, here's $50,000 for your team for the season, blah
Mhm.
blah, come in, whatever. $50,000. Let's even say it's 20 teams. That's only $1 million.
Mhm.
And with these franchise fees, that's $25 million minimum. Plus that
Mhm.
extra operational apron on top of that. These guys aren't running out of money. I think Robert Kraft is buying a video game team if it's actually going to hurt his direct bottom line, or he's going to miss that 25 million
Yeah.
on his wallet when he purchases Overwatch team. No, that's the kind of ownership group that Activision is aiming for with this, and this is what that H1 Pro League didn't have.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand how ambitious these projects are that Activision's doing. I'm saying this as a guy that's mainly an EA fan. I
Yeah.
have a lot of shares in EA. I like Battlefield. I don't really play Call of Duty. I do like EA's model, their paradigm of trying to pair these professional soccer teams with their esports league. So you have FC Barcelona signing players. Then like I guess the scump of FIFA, his name was Gorilla. FaZe signed him. I think it was about 6 months ago. He's sure he's on some sort of insane contract.
Mhm.
Uh, I do so. Me as an EA guy saying that what Activision's doing with the city-based franchising,
Yeah.
it's bold, it's ambitious, but I do think it's going to work.
I
Bobby
think
Kotick
it
is
is.
not a dumb guy. Guys like him and Cody
Mhm.
Johnson, they are not dumb guys. They've thought this way. They've thought this through probably for years, honestly. Now, and that also brings up another thing that I was a little interesting. So some of these Call of Duty orgs that were currently in the league
Mhm.
weren't even around 6 months ago. They didn't exist 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yet, yet they believe that they were somehow going to raise all of this cash and put together a bid, but they only started doing this after that franchise information got leaked to ESPN.
Yeah.
Really, these talks have been going on for years. I like they're a little bit late to the party on this one. Like, from what I figure, Call of Duty World League franchising was already on the table and discussed before Overwatch even came out.
Yeah,
But this
from
isn't
from
just
what from
something
what
that,
I
yeah,
believed
yeah.
was that it was actually like on the table during Overwatch. It was, hey,
Uh,
you get this in a couple years. This is also happening too.
Yeah,
I don't
see,
have
that's the
any.
thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's not like Bobby Kotick woke up one day and was like, "Hey, let's franchise Call of Duty. Hey, let's franchise Overwatch." No, this has been going on for
Yeah,
years.
people see these reports and they immediately think it happened that day, but
I don't know,
there's a
definitely not.
lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And with 2020, we're going to be seeing, at least people in the public eye, that we're going to be seeing a lot less of it. We're not going to be hearing all of these roster drama moves, roster mania, stuff like that. It's not going to be like that next year. So, guess people should get it out while they can now.
Yes, well, that's also why I was saying earlier. I don't think leakers are really going to be a thing next year,
Yeah.
and so I guess I mean, a media member might get a heads up that, oh, hey, we signed this player. It's going to be announced later. Here are the terms we signed him to.
Yeah, no,
How
it's
kind of
it's
how
not
that
gonna
goes because
be. Yeah, it's not gonna be anything like this year where we're getting DMs and stuff like that. It's gonna be somebody's agent or lawyer's gonna go to somebody like Jacob
yeah.
Wolf at ESPN, and it's gonna be just like you said, like traditional sports.
But that's also what's interesting to think about too. So what did you say right there? That we're getting screenshots of DMs and stuff that
Uh
are
huh.
leaking moves. Now, these DMs are obviously from people who are in the know. So they had
Yes.
to leak them
Uh
themselves.
huh.
So it goes back to what I was saying. Why be upset at a leaker when you're violating your own NDA to begin with?
Yeah.
You never violated your NDAs and told others your roster moves. This guy would not exist. He'd have nothing to report on.
Yeah.
I
These
mean, that might be too much of a hot take. I know some players might not like me saying that or think I'm passing the blame to them, but think about it at the end of the day.
I
If you
mean,
never leak your
it's.
roster moves to other players, there's nothing for any leaker to post on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that it's one of those things nowadays where if a player goes into a post on Twitter, Reddit, whatever, says, "Hey, this isn't true," it's probably true.
Well, I don't necessarily know about that, but that's another thing too. I know I've talked to a few players, and they actually admitted to me that they could have done it all over. They would have never commented on any of those posts because it just drew attention to them,
Yeah.
and that's really so. Like I said, they kind of created these leakers by giving them attention. If nobody ever paid any attention to it or publicly
Mhm.
commented on it, it just dies. But then,
Yeah.
so it's actually kind of interesting though. So there's something called the Streisand Effect, where
Mhm.
pretty much the backstory on this is that Barbara Streisand's house was photographed by the paparazzi. So she sued all these newspapers to make it so they couldn't publish the picture of the house.
Mhm.
Here's the thing: how many people really care about what Barbara Streisand's house looks like, right?
Not many.
But because she did that, people decided, oh well, let me just Google what her house looks like then. Why is she suing to not have these photos released of her house?
Yeah.
That's how the term Barbara Streisand effect came about. So you can say the same thing happened really with these leakers.
Mhm.
You never actually respond to them in any fashion, it wouldn't exist.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm.
Yeah.
That's. It's definitely a hot take. One that I actually kind of happen to agree with, but I'm not a pro player. These players obviously feel some sort of way. It's their job, it's their livelihood. I'm sure, they want to talk to friends about what's going on with their jobs, but it's business at the end of the day. And,
Definitely is business.
yeah, it happens. So, Edgar, I personally want to thank you for coming on tonight and talking to me. I know we were trying to land you a spot on another podcast, but hopefully tonight we can get you somewhere with a little bit bigger of a platform to share your opinions. Until then, again, thank you. And if there's one last thing you want to say to the stream, go for it.
Um, I don't know. I do want to thank you guys for coming out and listening to some random guy just, I don't know, talk about Call of Duty. But, I don't know.
Yeah,
Amanda,
you've
anything
you've
else?
you've kind of been sitting in the background for a little bit. And I correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first time you've kind of come out in public and said, "Hi, here's my opinions on Call of Duty. Here's why you should listen to me."
Well, I don't even think people should listen to me. Um, I don't know. I just figured it'd be a different take on certain things, and I want to believe that some of the stuff I said actually does make sense when you think about it,
Yeah.
and hopefully it gives some clarity to players, organizations, fans, that sort of stuff that they actually present an opinion they might not have thought of.
Yeah.
Maybe spur some extra discussion, maybe on Twitter, maybe on Reddit, maybe in the Twitch chat, something like that. Because I do agree right now that there is kind of an information blackout for everybody in the scene right now.
Yeah, there is.
So,
That's why I think. I mean, for me personally, regardless of the fact that I'm a journalist, I'm a COD fan, and I thought your opinions and insight into the community were definitely helpful. I mean, who knows, maybe there's a pro out there that listens to this and goes, wow, okay, maybe I really should read up on Overwatch. And that helps him score a great contract next year. Who knows?
Well,
Um,
hopefully.
hopefully that's the hope. But the last question I have for you before we end this off tonight, Edgar, is what kind of bold prediction do you have about who we are going to be seeing in CWL 2020 next year?
How bold?
How bold do you want to go?
Like, I don't know, like bold barbecue flavored or just like all the way, holy shit, you don't know what you're talking about.
I
You're
mean,
crazy, man.
do you want to go as bold as to make a Dexerto article, or do you just want to go as bold as to just make a Reddit highlight?
I don't know about being on Exerto, but heard usually bad things happen if you're on that website. Okay, let's go bold prediction. Let's say bold prediction. Obviously based on nothing, but yes for bold prediction.
Mm-hmm.
No FaZe Clan, no Optic Gaming and franchising next year.
No.
I guess you want a bold prediction or a bold statement. There you go.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Fair enough, right? There you go.
We might have to do an
Yeah,
episode
everyone
2
watching it?
based on that
I
one,
don't know.
dude. Holy moly. All right.
It's based on nothing. You just wanted a bold prediction. It's just like me saying something like, I don't know, Scump decides to, I don't know, learn how to ride horses backwards or something. I don't know, just something completely bold and random like that. You asked, so I answered. There you go.
Yeah, hey, you know what? You got me. That's fair. That's fair. You played me on that one. You beat my journalism skills. All right, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight with Edgar. Again, a huge shout out to him for hanging out, talking with us, answering your questions as well. If you guys want to hit him up, his Twitter is, I believe, it's just EdgarAllanPwn3d, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't really search. I don't really search for my own Twitter. It's just like I know people who don't know their own phone numbers because think about it, you're
That's
never
fair.
calling yourself.
That's fair. For me, anyway, it's one of those things where if somebody was to ask you a question after this podcast, how would they reach you?
Okay, well, I guess there you go. Well, yeah. I guess that's the correct Twitter account. I'm sure somebody will link it somewhere. I know you guys are giant detectives out there. You guys could probably
I mean,
find out who killed
there's an
Tupac.
entire
Honestly,
thread dedicated to you, so
I haven't read it. But like I
you're an
said,
interesting dude.
I mean, Reddit, 4chan, all of you guys out there, especially in the COD community, you guys are top-notch detectives. Figure out who killed Tupac. You guys can figure out who killed Biggie. You can figure out where Malaysian Airlines flight is. That plane, I don't know. You guys will know how to fix a 737 Max. I
Yeah,
don't know, but you guys can figure
that's
it
one
out.
of the things I love about the community, man. Is they're strong. They're certainly strong. But all right, guys, that's it for tonight. Have a good one, and guess we'll see you on the next one.